Hello, hello, Kevin Palowie here. It has been a blast to be here in New York all week hosting Build Series. I hope to be back again soon. Yeah, thank you. All right. Speaking of blasts, Kin is a stylish and thrilling sci-fi action film about an inner-city kid whose life is forever changed when he finds a futuristic, possibly otherworldly weapon in a Detroit warehouse. And for a film called Kin, it is very fittingly co-directed by brothers Jonathan Baker and Josh Baker. But more so than that, Kin announces the arrival of a truly exciting filmmaking tandem that I have a feeling we're going to see and hear a lot from more in the future. These fabulous Baker boys, sorry I couldn't help that one, will be out here to chat in just a moment. But first, here's a look at Kin in theaters August 31st.
If I'm hard on you, it's because the world is hard. You've seen that. And I just need you to stay out of trouble, okay?
Oh my God.
Your brother just got out of prison.
I know I've been away for a long time, but I want to make sure that you know that you're important to me.
I want you to be careful around him.
Welcome home, my man.
I know I owe you guys some money. I just wanted you to know I'm not dodging you.
Oh.
Let him go.
The hell is that thing?
What the hell is that?
I found it.
Somebody's got to be looking for this thing.
That thing your brother has in there? You need to call someone.
Can't do that. Find him. He's here somewhere.
Dangerous people are coming after us.
I know I'm not a good guy, but it's been pretty incredible to be brothers for the first time.
Whatever you've gotten him into. He's gonna figure it out eventually. I hope you're ready for that.
They're coming, man! Go!
I can't believe this whole time you haven't told me this. Go, go! Get away from my brother.
Maybe keep that thing on the first mode, yeah?
All right, guys, give it up for Jonathan Baker and Josh Baker.
That looks like
What
fun,
is
right?
Yeah.
I'd watch that.
Yeah, you'd watch that?
I'd watch that.
You'd watch that?
I've seen it a couple hundred times.
Maybe
but-
direct it? Yeah. Thank you guys for being here. This is exciting to talk to you. I really dug this movie.
Thank you, bro.
It is. I think it is refreshing. Like in a world of pre-sold franchises and sequels and
Yes,
reboots,
preach.
to come across a film like this that feels singular, original. One of the things I want to talk about first, and we were talking about this a little bit backstage. One of the things I really appreciate about this movie is it's this really grounded action drama. There's a road trip element to it.
There is.
There is, yes. And there's just the subtlest shade of sci-fi. Right?
Sure.
This is not like a sci-fi movie that, you know, it was shot on a green screens. This is all practical.
Completely.
It all feels very real and authentic.
Yeah.
How did you guys find that balance? Because this is not something that we see pulled off often. It's not something we see pulled off
Right.
easily.
Well, I think at its heart, we wanted this to feel handmade and not machine-made, right? Not studio-made. This is us trying to make a very character-driven, small, indie-spirited movie that also has big sci-fi concepts in it. We just didn't want the sci-fi to get out of control.
We talked about from day one that basically you could take away the sci-fi from this movie and it would still work on its own. It would still stand on its own feet.
Absolutely.
So that was important to us from day one.
There's a version of this movie that's a bag of diamonds or something else that is the MacGuffin.
Yeah.
You know.
The ray gun is way cooler, though.
Than a bag of diamonds?
Way cooler, yeah.
You're probably right.
Depends who you talk to, I guess.
Yeah, well, tell us a little bit about, like, we know this is based on a short film, or is inspired by a short film. But tell us about going even further back, about the very genesis of where this idea came from.
Well, it was probably 2014 or something, and we lived here in New York and wanted to mix genres and mix tones with something on the side. We have been directing advertising together for the last, 15 years, something like that. And so this was a little bit of a palate cleanser, if you will, something that was a little longer, something that we could just work on the side with all our favors here in New York.
You know, you work on 30-second, 60-second formats, and it's nice. It feels refreshing to actually do something with a little bit of length to it, be able to hold shots, you know. And so Bagman was a very quiet, very introspective kind of short film that punched people in the face with a bit of sci-fi, and it wasn't fully expected.
Yeah, it was about playing with expectations, something that started one way and ended a completely different way. So I don't know how many people have actually seen the short film, but that's the vibe.
It's on YouTube, and I highly recommend checking out Bagman.
And so I guess we wanted to do the same thing with the feature of keep that structure and introduce two different tones, things that may not actually go together. So something that's got much more of an indie spirit. You know, we had early references of things like Mud. Moonlight hadn't come out yet, but again, that type of tone.
Yeah, killing them softly, and that sort of crime drama kind of thing. Place Beyond the Pines, things like that are movies we really love. Yeah. But then crashing that with sci-fi, you know, District 9 or something like that doesn't really belong, but we try to sort of fit it into this very grounded world.
Yeah, it definitely has that. I can see those references now that you guys named those, because it definitely has that poetic aesthetic to it.
Yeah, and it went the whole way into the way that we shot the film. I mean, it's grainy. It's not. We tried to take all the slickery out of it and make it feel real.
I think, I mean, this isn't exact science, but I feel like 9 times out of 10 when a filmmaker sets out to do a short film, especially a genre film, a sci-fi film, they look at it as a calling card, right? Is it
proof of concept
to adapt that into a full feature. But from what I understand, this was not necessarily your intent with that short film.
Not really, man. We set out to tell a 15-minute story that was self-contained and lives online, and people can check it out. And we asked ourselves, I think in the edit, people are going to ask what the feature version of the story is.
We should probably have an answer.
We'll look like idiots if we don't have an answer to that, and probably miss an opportunity. And so we were on a beach
in Costa Rica.
That's right. And we just put together a bunch of ideas of, like, if we had to tell a movie version of this, what's the movie we'd want to watch? And after a week or two, we had an outline and pitched that around town. And it actually happened quite quick.
Yeah, it did. It was about as quick as you could kind of move from one thing into the other. We were writing the screenplay with a writer called Daniel Casey in 2015, and this thing came out at the end of 2014. So it moved pretty quick.
We also partnered with 21 Laps, who at the time were working on a little thing called Stranger Things, and one of our favorite sci-fi movies.
You've heard of it?
Arrival, and it turned out that these partners of ours had very similar tastes and were making kick-ass stuff that we wanted to watch. So.
A few noticeable changes that you guys made. One being the original setting. Bagman was based in
Harlem,
the world's greatest city,
right?
New York City.
Yep, New York.
The kid lives in Harlem, I believe.
He does
before he ventures upstate.
Totally.
Here he's in Detroit. What triggered that change?
When you're figuring out what movie you want to tell, you're thinking of themes. You're thinking of different characters. We wanted to tell a story about brothers specifically, but when it comes to themes, it was decay came into it in a big way, and it's about broken characters. I mean, half the guys on this poster, they're all broken people brought together. And Detroit kind of plays into that as a location. So we were just thinking of Detroit in that way of, like, maybe this is the perfect place to start this road trip.
The short answer is we lived in New York, so we shot it in New York.
Yeah.
And now we had money, so we shot it other places.
So we went where we wanted to go.
Right. No, but that's another, like, we talked about the blend of genre and drama. That's another, I think, dichotomy that works so well about this movie is the contrast between the urban decay of the Rust Belt,
Absolutely.
Detroit,
No, totally.
and these futuristic elements.
Absolutely. We've called it a duality. Like the movie has a duality from start to finish. You've got slick things in there, like visual effects and sci-fi, but you've also got really dirty, gritty things, which we really like putting on film.
Yeah, it's the combination of those two things that make it quite unique for us. Yeah.
And we've got to talk about your young star here, Miles Truitt, who plays
Yeah.
Eli. What a great performance this kid turns in. You know, you hear so often that, you know, child actors can be difficult to work with. I'm just going to guess that he wasn't, because he feels like an old soul. Like he
does.
There's something
He does
about
a
him that
lot.
he's like he's wise beyond his years.
He does a lot without talking, and if you remember in Bagman, there's not one line of dialogue from that character. And you know, bringing a young African-American lead into the film was super important to us, but we didn't want to make him completely different from the tone that we set up in Bagman. Obviously, he needs to talk in a movie.
He's a quiet kid.
But he's an introspective kid. He's a smart kid. He's observing a lot of what happens in the film, the family dynamic. And then when him and his brother go on the road, Zoe Kravitz's character, Millie, becomes involved. And it is really about these three broken characters forging a different kind of family together.
Yeah, let's talk about the supporting cast. Tons of great people in this film. Jack
Yeah.
Rayner, who plays his older brother, excellent actor. Dennis Quaid, Zoe Kravitz, James Franco. What was that? Obviously, people were drawn to this material, but what was that casting process like for you guys?
Look, we're really lucky. It's one of those things that if you do have cool material, people gravitate towards it. So we were blessed.
The other thing we've learned is just if you ask, a lot of time people say yes. I mean, what holds you back as a filmmaker sometimes is that you're nervous. People don't want to get involved for different reasons, whether it's first-time directors or whatever. But yeah, I think we had some good support with our producers, and we went out to some of these actors, and we got some yeses.
Yep.
Yeah. You guys talked about some of your influences. I wanted to ask specifically about another one. There's a scene on the road trip where Eli, it flashes by in a second, but he's playing a Terminator 2 video game.
Right, yeah.
And I don't think that was coincidental. I
well,
think there's a little bit of T2 influence.
No,
here.
there absolutely is. You know, there was a little bit of nostalgic 80s influence on this film, for sure. Mostly from a wish fulfillment for a child kind of perspective. I mean, there are a lot of the movies we grew up with.
We loved films like Flight of the Navigator and Last Starfighter and
E.T.
You know, a lot of those films are about a young kid that has found something that completely changes their life. And so this is the modern version of that.
Right. We wanted to do the 2018 version. I know there's some, it says Stranger Things on the poster. That was happening in tandem at the same time, so we actually didn't know anything about that. But there is similarity in the fact that there's a 80s kind of nostalgia that is on this film, but it's our version of a 2018 thing.
And then these two guys down the bottom, we're calling them the cleaners.
Yes.
There is a tip of the hat to Terminator for sure.
Absolutely.
We also just played that video game when we were kids, so we were like, if we can get it in a movie, why wouldn't we get it?
Was that your game? Your game that you put in
I'll
there?
tell you what,
That and the one next to it, which was Joust, which we also got permission to use, and we put them next to each other.
Nice.
Terminator 2 video game was the hardest license to get in the entire film. Funny enough, that took a long time, but we got it.
Got it.
I don't know if I could make a movie with my brother. We're not twins. We're Irish twins. We're 17 months apart.
Okay.
I feel like we'd be wrestling in the middle of the set on day 3. How did you guys discover that you were so compatible as a filmmaking tandem?
Well, we hear that a lot. I think it goes both ways. You could either really love your brother and sister and want to direct with them, or absolutely it'll never happen. For us, I don't know.
We've had experience doing it, you know, like
Yeah.
you said, like doing over a decade in advertising and learning how each other thinks and works helps.
Yeah.
You know, this wasn't our first rodeo, which is good. But you have your moments. You go behind the grip truck, you have a little fisticuffs.
You have it out. You have it out.
and then come out with smiles on your face.
Yeah. So there are pros and cons to it.
Yeah,
Sure.
absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
dude, there's a lot of pros, to be completely honest. If you're in a boardroom with a whole bunch of studio heads and they're all wearing suits and looking at you, it's nice to have someone next to you that can finish your sentence.
or like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like right now.
Or like this.
Wait. Is there some ESP thing going on here? Can you guys communicate without speaking? Because that would come in handy.
What Josh wants to say right now is there's a little bit going on, but it's more a shorthand thing than a freaky sci-fi thing.
Yeah. I mean, there's a long tradition of great fraterno filmmaking duos.
Yeah, there is.
Did you say fraterno?
Fraternal, yes,
Okay.
yes.
There is.
Yeah, Coen brothers,
totally.
Farrelly brothers,
Yep.
Russo brothers,
Wachowskis.
Wachowskis.
Sometimes it doesn't
brothers.
go as
Not
well.
brothers anymore.
Hughes brothers, they went
Hughes-
separate ways.
Yes. It's funny because I remember talking to your star James Franco on the promotional rounds for The Disaster Artist.
Yep.
And we were talking about actually it was James and Dave, and we were talking about the fact that they finally got to work together.
Totally.
And James was talking actually when he was talking about sort of the genesis of that collaboration, and he's like, "Yeah, I was at NYU, and one day I was thinking to myself, man, I wish I had my own Coen brother. I wish." And he's like,
That's
and then I remembered I do
Damn
have
it,
a brother.
I do.
I'm like, James, you actually have two brothers.
That is true. A lesser known brother.
Yes.
After the shooting of Kin, we met Dave for the first time, who's the sweetest dude on the planet.
Yeah, apparently James had a decent time and said to Dave, "You got to meet with these guys." And so suddenly we were at lunch with Dave, and
Because
he's
they
a nice
started
guy.
their own company, and
Right.
they were like, "We want to know what it's like for brothers to work together. Tell us."
Yep.
Yeah. But is that tradition that we talked about? Is that something that sort of inspired you guys? Like we could do this as
I guess so.
as a team.
We didn't think about it that way, but
More than that, I think it's just it would be very difficult to do it separately on a successful level, competing against each other, and it would probably
Right.
tear us apart, to be honest. So,
right.
As I watched this movie, I was blown away by the style and the uniqueness of it. And in the early goings, I kept thinking to myself, like, man, I can't wait to see what these guys are going to do next. I want to see them direct RoboCop, Detroit Connection, of course. And then I realized towards the end,
We're
of the
doing
film,
RoboCop, John.
Yeah.
Camp's doing RoboCop.
Yeah.
It's already taken.
Well, you never know. Everything's rebooted, right? Then I realized towards the end of the film that I think maybe this is this could be that franchise that
It's
you
possible.
guys is the idea is idea. I mean, we're not going to say anything about how the film ends, but like it does head down a certain road.
Absolutely. There is another story after this, and we have a pretty strong idea of what that would be, but we're not those guys that came in here saying, we've got a whole trilogy and we want to make the whole thing. So if people are interested and they want to know, then there is something else.
I think that's where the business side kicks in, and it's about the reception, and if people embrace it, then they'll jump on it.
Yeah. But was that a part of? I mean, this is going to be distributed by Lionsgate. This is a major distributor.
Yeah, it's a big boy film.
Yeah, it's a big boy film.
It is.
Was that part of the discussion with them? Did that?
Yeah,
make it
yeah, that came up.
enhance it?
I mean, look,
Yeah.
a studio was very interested in making a franchise, and so there were questions and things that we needed to know, and I think we do know. But it's one of those things that if this is successful and people want to know what's next, then we'll think about it then.
It does go to a big place at the end. We've got a really fun,
Yes.
big,
A surprising place. Very surprising.
It's a fun third act.
And so we always talked a lot about if there was a sequel to a movie like this, the two DVDs. No one watches DVDs anymore, but them sitting on the shelf together, they're very different movies, which could be fun.
Yeah. So you guys have done a few shorts. This is your feature debut. Would you sort of identify this? I'm not trying to make you forcefully pigeonhole yourselves, but would you describe this as sort of like your sweet spot in terms of like the genres that you guys
it's very
wanted
us.
to delve into?
Look, I'd answer yes because all the things we love about cinema is in this movie.
It's a very selfish endeavor to go and make a movie because you want to kind of pack all of your tastes in the one thing.
Right.
Not only to show people what our voice is as filmmakers, but to get you don't get the opportunity to make a movie
Right.
very often. You want to
And
put as
especially
much
not
of
a
it in.
first movie. So yeah, to a certain degree, there is everything that we like about cinema is in this. We're lucky that it was a multi-genre, multi-toned kind of film, so we could do that. But yeah, next one will be interesting. I'm interested too.
Yeah. You guys hail from Down Under.
Is the accent still there?
Yeah, a little
hope
bit,
so.
a little bit. It's subtle. It's subtle. You guys have been over here for a while now. What,
Yep.
15?
A little less than that,
Since 2007, so whatever that is. Yep.
Yeah. So you've planted the roots here. Have you thought about telling an Australian story at some point, or is that
it's funny you
something
asked
you guys
that.
want to do at some
discussed
point?
It's a very different industry. Like you said, we have families here. I've got 2 daughters. Josh's got a son. We live in LA. Going back home to tell an Australian story would be challenging in many different ways. But I think we want to tell A lot of different stories.
I think we like telling personal stories, and this is a very personal story. And I think telling an Australian film would be like the same thing. So yeah, I'm interested. It just has to be the right thing. We actually have a random. It'll probably end up being our 8th movie once we can get it made.
Financed.
But we spent some time in the Solomon Islands back in 1993, and so we've got an idea that revolves around
Island life.
Island life that'd be really cool that no one would want to see.
But that's what we got Netflix for, right?
We got to be Christopher Nolan first, and then we'll get that done.
Exactly. Well, you guys have talked about what films inspired Kin.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what you're currently into. We do a series here called Weekend Watch where we give our pop culture picks for the weekend. What has blown you guys away recently on film and television?
Well, you just got through Ozark and was a pretty big fan.
Huge fan of that.
And we are, unfortunately, Ozark comes out very soon.
Ozark season 2 comes out the day this drops, so
you give Ozark some time and you check this out first.
There you go.
it's always going to be there.
Ozark was good. That was really well done.
What about movies? What have we seen lately?
I'm very much looking forward to seeing 8th Grade.
Oh, yes.
I don't know if anyone's seen that yet. I've been too busy promoting a movie, but you guys have no excuse.
We've been busy, guys.
Yeah, well, you're both fathers. I've seen 8th Grade, and I will tell you, I have 2 daughters as well, and I came home, and I was like, I'm going to homeschool my daughters.
I was going to say,
I'm going to homeschool my daughters.
I think they're going to be scared the hell out of me.
They're not going to.
I would also say we're Australian, and being in the American school system, even more so. So, yeah, same for me.
Those LA schools. Watch out. We're gonna get to an audience Q&A.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it.
All right. Who is up first? Hello.
Hey, hi.
What's up, man? What's your name?
Nigel.
What's up, Nigel?
I actually thought you guys were English, so I'm surprised that you said.
So does everybody else, man.
So you mentioned that the movie was based on a short story called Bagman.
Yes.
So 2 questions, really. First one was, do you have any other short stories that you're looking to make into a movie? And secondly, I noticed on IMDb that even though you wrote and directed Bagman, the screenplay was written by somebody else for Kin.
That's correct.
Was that by design, or?
We consider ourselves story guys. Always have. We have a great ability to sort of come up with a little nugget of an idea,
brainstorm,
bounce it off each other a bunch of times until it holds some weight, and write it down on a napkin. And then we love working with more talented people than we are when it comes to writers. Also, sitting on a typewriter together doesn't really work that well. So we've got a 3-way relationship with DPs, production designers, editors, writers is just the same.
And it works pretty well. You can kind of have 2 on one side and 1 on the other, so decisions get made. Whereas
less of a head-to-head thing, more of like a collaboration. And so we really like that process. For Kin, like we said, we pushed that out into an outline for a movie. We knew character names. We knew, go to woe, and pitched it to a writer, and then collaborated further.
And it was always something that we wanted to do because there is many talented writers out there, and we wanted their perspective on the film as well.
In terms of your first question, other shorts. At the time, doing advertising, shorts were like the mid-level step between that and feature films. It's an easier way, not easy, but an easier way to get a little story out there and told.
Right. We highly recommend it. Making a short film, something good that you're proud of, and put it out there in the ethos and let someone else say, what's the longer version? I mean, that's something that's happening right now. It's absolutely part of the culture.
Hollywood's hungry, man. They scour the net for that stuff, so it's a great calling card. It's people watch it, you go into a meeting, you can constantly refer to something that's real and tangible.
And they can see it. It exists.
You guys have other shorts that you produced. Could you?
Yeah, I mean, they were mess around shorts.
You wouldn't see those as things that you would adapt.
A lot of those were almost, I would say, tests. Like they were just things that we were just messing around with on the side. But then you polish them up, and it ends up as a short film.
We did a little thing called Little Kaiju, 2012 or something. That's something I could see as like a kids Netflix series or something fun like that. But who knows? We got plenty of stories to tell.
Yeah, cool. All right, thanks for that question.
Hey, what's up, guys?
What's up, man?
How you doing? Well, you guys kind of already answered a couple of the questions I already had, but I came up with another one. We're all about the same age and whatnot. Growing up, what was your ultimate go-to sci-fi
film?
Yeah.
Well, I would say Back to the Future was what we were the most obsessed with, and we've seen that probably the most times.
But that's a perfect example of a film. Firstly, it's a perfect film.
Yep.
Secondly, it's sci-fi in a very real-world kind of setting with relatable characters. That's the kind of sci-fi we enjoy.
Yeah, I don't think sci-fi necessarily needs to be spaceships and aliens, and I think Back to the Future did a really good job at doing something outer limits weird in a 80s blockbuster. So that to us is where our heritage lies.
And then modern examples of that is movies like Ex Machina or Looper, or even things like grounded movies like Logan. We dig. We're definitely down for that kind of stuff.
All right, thank you. We got one last question. Hi.
Hi. So I'm wondering, what was the moment that you knew you both wanted to be filmmakers, and what were those? What were some movies that you saw when you were younger that?
Well, what we like to call it, we jumped the fence into filmmaking. We came in the back door. So we were in advertising before we're now feature directors, and we were designers before that. So we kind of took baby steps to get into it. And the design world, and we were in motion graphics, that's a very specific world, but it involves live action a lot. So you kind of find yourself being a director, even if you don't want to be. And we found the passion for telling stories. And so we quickly, around the same time, back into the early 2000s, jumped out of that and decided to do
I think
directing.
if you take it all the way back, you hear about like Super 8 cameras and all this. Yeah, we were the kids that were running around doing little cheap video camera things, like making copying trailers.
Yeah,
or
mostly
doing our own versions
emulating
of things.
stuff, to be honest.
Little stunts of lighting our hands on fire and putting it in a scene. Yeah, just stupid brother things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Jonathan, Josh, thank you guys for being here.
Thanks for having us, man.
It's great to talk to you guys. Congrats on the film. I can't wait to see what you guys do next.
I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you guys for being here. Kin is in theaters August 31st.